Called up my friends and we had a chat. Talk about life and just chewing the fat. They'll find it here on Biggie Nixz. Small time big shots. Welcome to episode 4 of Biggie Nixz Small Time Big Shots. This episode I've got Dean Gilboy with me from bands such as, what are you guys, back to Koffin Rockers now?
It's back to the Koffin Rockers, yeah.
Were the Vankies there for a bit, and also playing with Area-7 these days.
Yes.
So I first met Dean back in my glory days in 3 Mile Road up in Townsville, when you guys were playing in Koffin Rockers back then.
Yep.
How long, because that would have been 2014, 15, 16.
Yeah.
So how long had you guys been around at that point? Because there's a bit of a gap, kind of 2008 through to 2013, where I didn't have anything really much to do with the Townsville scene, because most of that time I was in Brisbane. So 2009, I moved to Brizzy.
Yep.
So just didn't really know what was going on with the scene at that point. So how long had you guys been around Koffin Rockers before we first ran into each other in Townsville? Because you guys were a pretty tight unit by the time that we met. So I had a gauge that you guys have been around for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think probably. Oh, see, I'm useless with years. I want to say 2012 or 20. Oh shit. In 2012, that sounds about right. So we originally started off as the Rockefellers. So Michael Hegarty and myself, I met Michael when I worked at Artie's music shop there, and we talked about how we'd start a band doing something. I don't think we decided what we were going to play, and yeah, we ended up just getting into this rockabilly thing, and we ended up having a bass player at the time, Pedro. He did a few gigs with us, maybe three or four gigs, 2 or 3, something like that. But then, God, I should know more about our history, you know. Then something happened. Oh, he moved. So that's right. He moved to Melbourne. And so it was just Michael and I again, and we thought, oh, let's what do we do regarding bass players? And so Michael got in touch, or he knew someone, a guy called Sean, through the Rock and Roll Dance Club, who we did a couple of gigs for. I mean, he owned a double bass, and he was just kind of mucking around, learning the bass. And him and Hags got along like a house on fire, and they used to, you know, drink and party together and stuff like that. So Butch joined the band, and we got Butch to join the band purely because he owned a double bass, because there's not too many people getting around Townsville with a double bass. I think there's probably 2 guys that I know of, maybe 3, that sort of played in that rockabilly style. So essentially, the Koffin Rockers were born. Don't know how the name really came together. I don't really remember that much. It's sort of just a kind of a sick, jokey kind of name that kind of stuck. Turns out, you know, marketing a little coffin and having it as a logo is a really, really convenient thing to do and have. It's just it's kind of sits in nicely with the eye and coffin, and it's a good little sticker. And Michael and Sean and a couple other friends have the actual coffins tattooed on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, different. Yeah, that's dedicated.
That is dedication.
Yeah. So, so Butch joined the band, and God, I can't remember. You're putting me on the spot now. I should have done my research before I came on. I can't remember what our first gig was. But anyway, we got a few gigs under our belt, and props to Sean, because Sean was learning bass at the time when he joined, so he hadn't really played with any other bands before. He just got the bass because he loved rockabilly music, rock and roll, and he loved the upright double bass. So Hegs kind of taught him some stuff, and Butch did all the hard work and the the practice, and um, he's where he's at today.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we'd just been playing together for a long time. We used to hang out together all the time. Um, we'd practice all the time. We just all got along really well, and I think just that's part of the reason why we were still are a pretty tight band.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
It is a kind of a common thing you do find amongst those bands that have a tighter stage presence, that ability to jam,
Mm.
is there's often a friendship outside the band
Mhm.
as well, and common interests outside of, like, yeah, we just get together and we jam and then we play gigs and then we go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And I think with bands that do that, is what you find is, like, there seems to be more of a soul to the band as
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
which is an interesting thing to say about a rockabilly band, but it definitely
Oh,
speaks to like your ability as individual players as well, that you have that, like, that jam ability about you. So I definitely recall a few of the gigs that I've been at. um you know, there's extended, more improvised solos and stuff like that, where it
yeah.
had that kind of, yeah, the crowd's feeling it, we're feeling it, let's just do another 8. Yeah, sweet.
Yep.
Is that something that you guys do consciously, like rehearse doing that as a band consciously, or is it
I,
more of
I
just
think
wait
so.
until the live shows?
No, that we have to an extent rehearsed that. We've kind of gone, if we've ever learnt a new song or are writing a song or something like that, we'd sit there and go, oh, we could really see crowd participation in this
Yeah,
part of the song. So, what if we do this here, and that way, if it's still cooking and it still feels good, we can just run it around another time. And I think all of us hanging around together a lot too, and getting along as well as we do. Um, there's that level of camaraderie, and it's you kind of what everyone else is going to do before they do it.
yeah,
And well, that's where I am as a drummer, sitting behind those guys, watching them play. I can tell, I know exactly what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. And I'm sure it's the same with them for me. So I think it's just time. It's just time in the seat, really. With us playing. I mean, we had a few gigs at the start there, and well, we've had a few, but they were just shockers, like
yeah,
absolute shockers. But I mean, what band hasn't had
yeah.
shocking?
I mean, if you've only ever played Great Krigs, then you haven't really ever played. Like,
No.
that's how I think you cut your teeth and you learn
Yes.
on those gigs where it's like, man, that was a shocker. Let's never do this, and
Yeah.
this again.
Yeah.
Like, those are 5 things we can definitely say were bad ideas. Scrap
Yep.
them. Move on.
And just when you think you really you kind of really on top of things there, or we're a tight band now, we'll never get kicked off the stage or booed off the stage or anything like that. Just
Yeah.
it still happens. It doesn't matter how tight you are. When we first came, our first ever gig in Melbourne, we was at is it the Lucky 13 bar out in Moorabbin.
All right. So
And we were the new guys in town. We had 2 gigs down here, but we went out there, and it was like a rock and roll night. So there was us doing the rockabilly thing, and there was, I think, 2 other rockabilly bands on,
yeah.
and all the locals knew the local bands, and they essentially came out to see the local bands, and we were just the out of towners sort of playing, and we were playing our we were playing our asses off, and no one was dancing, no one was nodding their head, no one was tapping their feet, no nothing. I think it was
Yeah.
after about like the 5th or 6th song or something like that. The promoter or the owner of the bars just come up and gone, look, I need to keep these people who've paid a door charge entertained.
Yeah.
Look, I'll still pay you guys, but next song, wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
You're done.
Wow.
And we sort of first gig in Melbourne was kind of like, okay, shit. Well, this is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
cool,
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, we thought we were really tight then. And we got kicked off the stage, and then there was another gig we played at it was some kind of function thing in the showgrounds at Air, and it was some kind of party, and we were probably a month or two short of heading overseas for a 3-week tour over there. So we'd been practicing a lot. We'd been playing 2 or 3 times a month for like a year at that point, and we were shit hot,
yeah,
really, like the way we were playing. It's just in terms of tightness
yeah.
and just our level of practice at the time. And I think it was between sets we got a complaint letter written to us by one of the punters in the crowd, and it said on the letter something. I think Michael still has the piece of paper. Something it was something like, if you're going to play shows like this, you should probably think about learning some things the locals actually listen to. Blah blah blah. I lifted off a few songs and just sort of said, really, really, bottom tier entertainment tonight, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's like, well,
never a dull moment.
and you do get events like that, and I suppose that's you got to kind of just shrug that off as like, well, that's on the promoter. Like the promoter should have known, like, this
Yeah.
is the kind
I
of
mean,
music we play. This is the kind of crowd you're getting in.
yeah. I mean, and they still do. We still do book our own gigs for the most part. We had a booking agent for a while, but it we work best in a pub, in a
Yeah.
drunken environment. That's where we shine. But when normally, because we're booking our own gigs, if it is for something like, hey, we're our footy team, it's our awards night, and we're having an after party breakup sort of thing, we want you to play. We would it's almost like a disclaimer. We would go, okay, but this is what we do. We'd send some videos, or we'd say, this is this, as long as you know what you're getting yourself into, because it's not everyone likes it, but
I think that's that's part of selling yourself as well, is not selling yourself short and ending up with the reputation of, oh, those loud guys that played at the high school graduation, oh, so noisy. And it's like, guys, like you booked us, like you called us.
I mean, it was never the customers, or never the people who booked us. They're never the ones to complain. It's always just that odd punter who, we were getting paid, or we still do get paid by, how many drinks are sold over the bar and things like that. And it's commonly known in the rockabilly scene as water drinkers, but they're the people who, they don't pay a cover charge. They come in, they drink water, or they don't buy anything over the bar. They try and have a dance, and they go home. So they're getting a free night of entertainment, and
and they want to have a whinge.
They want to have a whinge.
It happens everywhere. So and like, is that like, obviously you're saying it still happens, but how have you found like the growth of like venues being a band that has had the longevity of Koffin Rockers? Because I know you guys have played Greaser Fest down here a couple of times, and you just mentioned a tour overseas.
Yep.
Where was that tour?
So we played in Germany, Poland, Prague. There's another country there somewhere. No, I think that's it. I think it was 3 countries. So mostly about Germany.
Yeah. How did you end up lining up gigs in Germany? Did you have like
so it was over there, we have some German friends in Brisbane who discovered us, and they are part of what's like, so over, you got like bikie gangs in Australia. I've got like music gangs or music clubs overseas, or especially all through Europe. So they're just a big group of punters who promote gigs, organize gigs. They want to keep music alive, so they offer up their living rooms, and they cook for bands. It's almost like it's just like this big volunteer thing. So they're called the Cruisers, and so Lars and Stefan helped us out there. 2 very German names. So they helped us out there. So we toured over there for 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. It wasn't glamorous. Like, we were sleeping on living room floors, and I think might have had 3 or 4 hotels in there, but it was awesome. It was really good.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine like you said, it's more about the experience and the, getting to play shows in remote places.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
just being it's so different over there too, the way they run gigs. Like we've played all over Queensland and or sort of all over Australia as well, playing gigs, and you'd show up to the venue of the afternoon, they go, "Yep, here's the stage, whatever you're on at this time, cool, see you then." Where we'd rock up to a place in Mannheim in Germany, and they go, "Okay, here's the stage, here's everything you need, a hand carrying anything in. All right, here's your band area. We've made you dinner," and they'd have like Bain Marie's full of pasta and everything like that. So all the touring bands that would come through, the venues cook dinner for them, and
holy,
so you can sit in your green room and load up on, you know, all the pasta and
yeah,
sauerkraut.
yeah.
You can put your mouth around.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Man, it almost makes touring Europe and making little to no money worth going over there just
yeah.
for if you're going to be taken care of like that. Well, you know.
Not a yeah, and that was the beauty of the crew was they it's kind of I suppose it's like an unspoken thing where it's like, if they're all sort of in bands and that over there, and they support their local bands. But if they were to come over to Australia, it's like, well, they've helped me out, so I feel obliged to, like
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
be rude not to offer up a living room, or you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of just this big love thing.
yeah. That's cool. It'd be cool to see more of that going on in Australia as well. But
Australia's
um,
pretty cold, it seems, when it comes to even local touring bands and everything.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they say that the live music's dying. We're trying to bring live music back, but it's just until you see how the other countries do it. This just Australia's really not very hospitable to their own acts.
yeah. It's interesting you say that. Like you were saying, there seems to be a fair bit of rivalry in the even in the rockabilly scene. Because you hear stories about the punk scene in like New York and places like that in like the 80s and early 90s, and
Mhm.
there were definite gangs of guys that would
Yeah,
go to support. So are you still seeing rivalry like that in the like rockabilly and punk scene in Australia in the venues that you're seeing, or it's
not.
it's a one-off sort of?
It's kind of a maybe. I think there was maybe a little bit of it happening overseas because they're just such diehard fans over it. Like you're gonna get a group of people who support one band, you know, 100%. Then you've got these other people who are going to support another band, and then these two bands might be on the same bill, and then one band will hurt another band or burn another, and then you've kind of got fans on fans, and that can
Yeah,
kind of get a bit. But I mean, like we've never come across that in Australia. We've had in the rockabilly scene, I think, because we've always been like the feral breds who've come in. We're kind of we don't wear the vintage suits. We don't well, I don't have the tattoos. We don't sort of have those haircuts, and we don't drive the vintage cars. So you've got the rockabilly guys who look, you sort of walk the walk and talk the talk, whereas they kind of look down on us a little bit because we're kind of, well, man, we're from North Queensland, so we're
yeah,
bogans,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You love the
So
music, but the style of dress, man, not so much.
yeah, and just like they would just look down at us, but I think there's a small network of bands there who we've all got each other's backs, and we might not see each other for years and years, and then when we do catch up, it's like it's been a minute. So there's
Yeah,
not a heap of rivalry. Normally, if there is, I mean, it's not a rivalry; it's just egos.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so how do you find, like, is there much of rockabilly scene in North Queensland, in Townsville or even Cairns in particular? Or are you guys having to travel further
Well,
and further?
I'm not doing anything rockabilly at the moment because I'm living in
Oh,
Melbourne. So
oh, right.
so um, Sean and Michael, and there's Michael Hegarty and Michael Fort,
Yeah,
and uh, Forty's kind of the fill-in drummer, and I mean he's doing more gigs than I am, so he's pretty
yeah,
much just I'm turning into the fill-in drummer. and he's the full-time guy. So they're sort of, they're working up there at the moment. But I don't know. We call it Ockabilly because we've just never been that full purist kind of. Like I said, we don't drive the old cars. We don't, we don't go for the vintage instruments or the, we just it's kind of like AC/DC meets rockabilly, really. It's just that
Yeah.
Australian kind of grunt.
Yeah.
So we've never tried to fit in with that whole scene. But I think there are a couple of bands up in Cairns, like rockabilly bands. I can't remember their names if there are
Yeah.
any. You had Liquid Revival in Townsville. They were friends of ours. They did some rockabilly stuff, and they actually had Brody Finlay, who was fronting them. He went off, and he's actually a really good Elvis impersonator. He's
Oh, right.
won awards and everything like that for it at parks and that. So, yeah, it was. Yeah, there's not a huge scene up there, not like there is in Brisbane or Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're in Melbourne now.
I am in Melbourne. Yeah, I moved in 2020.
Yeah, right. So you've been playing. Well, I know you've been playing with Area-7 on their latest kind of gigs that they've been doing.
Yep.
So is that full time for you now, or are you still just the fill-in guy?
I'm sort of. I think I'm in the band, but it's not in. Yeah, I think I started off as a fill-in, and it's kind of just become a. I know I keep getting emailed for gigs, so that's a win.
That's always fun. So how did you come about meeting the guys in Area-7 and then getting the role as the fill-in drummer?
So, the Koffin Rockers did. Sorry, when we changed to the Van Keys, we did a few festivals, like the Hotter Than Hell Festival, Stones Corner Festival, things like that, which was all through promoters who were booking like Grin Spoon and Spiderbait, Eskimo Joe, all those sort of guys.
Yeah, right.
And these festivals kind of overlapped, and they get this thing called Stones Corner, which is in Stones Corner in Brisbane. I'm sure you've probably been there. But we were on the same bill as Area-7 for that one. And the night before the Stones Corner gig, we played in Noosa, I think, at a pub with Area-7, just us supporting them.
Yeah, yep.
We just got to know the guys then. And then obviously we were playing with them the following night. So just over those 2 nights, we got to know each other really well. And then I think a year had passed maybe. And then there was the Hotter Than Hell Festival up in Townsville that Area-7 were playing at. And the same promoter booked them for a gig up in Cairns the night before. And I got a text message on the Thursday, so the Thursday night, and it was Steve-O from Area-7 saying, "Hey mate, we've had a bit of a disagreement with our current drummer, who was a different fill-in guy."
All right.
And it said, "How are you able to learn our set in 24 hours or before Friday night?" And I just said, "Yep, I'll do it." I was shitting. I tried it and I somehow pulled it off, and they also needed a drummer for the Saturday at Hotter Than Hell, so I played with them for that, and yeah, just every gig I've done since with them, it's just like I said, I've been getting emails from them, so yeah, good thing I knew some of their stuff.
yeah, that's pretty handy. I mean, unfortunate circumstances to be getting that gig with the loss of the previous drummer from Area-7, which must be kind of like an odd thing for you to know, that like this, your good luck in this sense, I suppose, is a result of like a tragic event. Like, is that something you've had a hard time kind of coming to grips with, or?
The first 2 Melbourne gigs I did with Area-7, the first one was after Dan, the original drummer, had passed.
Yeah.
it was kind of between lockdowns down here, and it was like a memorial night kind of thing. We did it with 28 Days, and we're kind of honoring both drummers from those bands because 28 Days had lost a drummer.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
So it's just kind of just like an acknowledgement sort of thing that we did. And I remember that was a weird one for me because I remember, I mean, I love playing with Area-7. The
Yeah, yeah.
music's so much fun to play, big sound, it's so much fun. So I'm having a blast playing these songs, and then I sort of look up into the crowd, or if I get a brief moment where I can see the crowd, there was, like there was like two women sort of sobbing and looking at the drums, and just different songs, different people
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
hugging and crying, and it was just kind of really odd.
Yeah.
And then the second gig I did with them was obviously his proper memorial night where they sort of celebrated him and had some special guests come up on stage and things like that. That one wasn't as bad, but it was strange. But I think now that we've sort of gotten past that and the band's still kind of pushing on and just, you know, I can finally kind of do my own thing, whereas I might have felt a bit guilty, sort of bringing too much to the party at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah. With those, yeah. Yeah, I can imagine because like I've joined bands after drummers have quit the band or whatever, but it's a completely different circumstance from like, you know, the drummer left the band for whatever reason to
Mm.
the drummer tragically passed away. So yeah, it's interesting to see how you dealt with that, but obviously you did, and things
Yeah,
are
I mean, we remember Dan at every gig we do,
yeah,
but um, yeah, it's kind of it's getting easier now.
yeah,
There's still that element of where it's kind of, the good thing about the Koffin Rockers is that I can be a bit of a show pony and
yeah,
show off, jump around and spin my sticks and whatever because it's my band.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
a founding member, whereas there are times with the Area 7 stuff I'd love to, show off as like, no, just
yeah,
pull it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Yeah,
Or I mean, they'd always be down for it, but you sort of feel like I'm
yeah,
stepping on toes a bit still. But
yeah. I do know, like, I know that what that experience is like is, joining 3 Mile Road and knowing like I'm the new guy in the band. Like, I don't really have to prove myself to these guys, but I do need to prove myself to the crowd.
hmm
And so don't go too big too early because
yep,
there's guys out there that are just going to be like, no, what a show off.
yeah,
Who does he
yep,
think he is? He's
yep,
no, you know. So I think it's interesting to note, that's something that, um, and I think a lot of performers, you kind of get guys that join a existing band. They do tend to go one of two ways, don't they? Like they either go, no, I'm going to keep it real. I'm just going to
hmm
show them that I can do the material and
hmm
I'm interesting as well, but I'm going to do the material and I'm going to honor this guy
hmm
or that they're used to seeing. Or you get the guys that go, no, look, that old drummer was trash. Look what I can do. Or, that old guitarist, he couldn't solo for shit. What's this?
yep.
And I think a lot of the time, those guys that go too big too early um, lose the crowd pretty quickly. They're like,
I mean, I think too. Like, I mean, if the songs are popular songs, they're popular for a reason, and so if you're gonna play the drums different, like, if nobody likes a bogan,
yeah,
I pretty much play that song almost note for note because
yeah, yeah.
it's not how the song feels, but it's people recognize it and that's how they hear it in their head. So
That's it.
it's, if they want to hear Nobody Likes a Bogan all night and then I bring in something different to try and put my footprint, on the band, then it's just not going to sound right and it's not going to reflect well on the band. And so the songs have been written, I add my own fills here and there. Um, but it's sort of fortunate because the stuff that Dan used to play isn't too far from what I would do
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that position if I was, writing the music.
yeah. So is that something you found easy to kind of step into that role because it's a style very similar to your style of playing
Yeah, it's
naturally?
yeah, it's Yeah, it Dan, when he wrote those drum parts, I don't know if it was just his style or if he sort of wrote it especially, but I don't know, they just flow really nicely, and it's so easy to play. Nothing's Every now and then I might play with a band where it's not quite my style. So I'm trying to sort of get my head around something, and if I try and do a fill, I get the feel that I'm pushing, or it just feels unnatural, or I'm fighting
Yeah,
against
yeah,
something. Whereas with Area-7 stuff, it just kind of yeah, I don't know. It's like almost a bit like second nature, but it just works.
yeah,
Yeah, it just came very easily to me.
yeah, right, yeah. And do you think maybe part of that is having been a fan of the band for such a long time? Because I mean, there's bands that I've been listening to since I was like, 14, 15 years old
Mm.
that I feel like if they came to me tomorrow and were like, hey, do
You,
you want to
you
sit
could
in
see it.
for a set?
Yep.
I'd be
Yep.
like, I've been waiting my whole life for this, guys. Like,
Yeah.
whereas there's other bands out there that like if they came to me and said, hey, did you want to sit in for a set? I'd be like, look, I'd love to,
I'm gonna need some
but
time. Yeah.
I'm gonna need at least 6 months.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, like liking the music helps a lot.
Yep.
I don't think I could sit in comfortably with a band if I don't like their music. Um, but yeah, I guess maybe it's just like I don't know, maybe it's just I think it's because it's just my style of playing or the way I would structure a fill or a song or something like that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think liking the music has too much to do with it because I mean, I don't like country music that much. Or I don't listen to it, I should say. But I really enjoy playing with it or playing it because it feels so good and it just kind
Yep.
of flows and it's such a good groove and stuff like that. So I think it just, yeah, comes down to playing style really. Well, for me anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting you say that about country music because I'm not a country fan at all. Like hands down, I think I know one country artist
Yeah.
and I know of several, but
Mm.
like there's legitimately one that I
Yep.
would listen to. And he's a comedian, like
Yep.
he's not serious country. But that being said, I played in 3 Mile Road for several years, which are really a blues country rock band,
Mhm.
and it's just like you said, fun music to play. So I think that very much of like if the music itself is fun to play, then you don't necessarily have to be as big a fan of
No.
that
I mean,
music.
yeah, like like I said, in my free time, I'll never really put country music on and listen. But if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, you want to do this country gig or I'm a country artist, you want to, can you play drums for me or whatever?" I'll always say yes because
Yeah,
music is so good to play and it's fun. It's such a good genre to lock in with other musicians. And um, from I suppose, a technical standpoint, drumming is pretty sort of straightforward, but from the
yeah,
music sense, there's a lot of sort of hooks and half bars and things. So it's that right balance of just sort of meat and potatoes playing, but you've still got to kind of have your wits about you and watch
yeah.
watch the band, because they love to throw in little things that like to trick you.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fairly like one of the things you get a lot in punk music as
Mm.
well. Like that, it's fairly straightforward, kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. But the stuff that you really got to be on the ball for is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2,
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 1, like and that's I think that where you see that similarity in drumming style and being able to follow the music is those stop start kind of actions that you find in quite a lot of
Yep.
punk music, but then you find that transfers over into country music as well. So
Yep.
drawing those similarities, it's interesting to see, you know, the bands that you played in and are playing in, and that's one thing that's for you a fun element of playing those different styles. So
Yeah. I'll play anything I can get my hands on,
yeah,
really.
yeah. Have you
Everything's but metal. I can't play metal very well.
That's interesting you say that, man, because like I grew up on metal. Like that was some of the earliest bands I was in. I wanted to be a metal drummer,
Mm.
but then was also playing like in concert bands and jazz bands. And I think those were where I really honed my chops more so than being in the metal bands, because we
Yep.
weren't really playing technical metal. And
No.
we weren't even really playing very fast thrash metal. It was more kind of
Heavy.
grunge, stoner rock kind of metal. And it's, yeah, that's one of still, if not my favorite genre, one of my favorite genres. But you're not learning a lot of technical ability while you're just playing a boom,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so, but then, obviously yourself, um, your drumming, like how old were you when you would have started drumming?
I started playing drums when I was 9, 8 or yeah, probably 9,
Yeah,
turning 9.
right. And was that through a school?
No, so I come from a family of drummers. So my grandfather was a working drummer, and both my uncles were working drummers. Um, so I was kind of surrounded by it. So when I decided that I wanted to learn to play drums, I pretty much had, 3 sets of hands going, here, take
Yeah.
this, take this,
Yeah,
take
yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
listen to this, listen to this. And here's my book, here's my practice pad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was kind of taught privately by my grandfather um, for the first 12 months, and he was a jazz nut. He loved
Yeah.
his big band swing sort of stuff, all your Benny Goodman, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I pretty much, when I first started out playing drums, I was pretty much force fed everything Gene Krupa ever did.
Oh.
Which is, at the time I was, yeah, it's jazz. I just want to play Metallica. But I'm really thankful that I got to be exposed to that kind of music at
Yeah.
that age and my uncle as well, he plays piano for the Stokes Nicholson big band in Townsville. So when I was a kid, I used to go along to rehearsals. So even before I used to play drums. So um, just hearing a big band in person was really inspiring.
Yeah.
So even when I started learning drums and my granddad's teaching me all this jazz stuff, I could go to a big band rehearsal and sort of see it in action and sort of tap along so it was yes. And then so that's sort of the first 12 months, and then I got some lessons at school for a couple of years, and then I just learned privately on how to read music. But the rest was just kind of just from listening,
Yeah.
really. I love listening to music, and I really deeply listen to music, and I think it just it made probably 65% of my ability comes from listening.
Yeah. I think that's, I did a lot of book learning when I was, at high school, primary school, because I went right through primary school music programs, high school music programs, even did a year and a half of university.
Mm.
But I'd say at least 40% of my ability to play comes purely from sitting down and listening to other people playing,
Mhm.
and at least another 20% comes from sitting down and playing with other people.
Yep.
But as much book learning as I've ever done, I
Yeah.
think I've learnt far more with just playing with other people,
Yeah.
and listening to other people play. Like that experience, to a musician, the ability to go and see, at a young age too, like 9, 10 years old, when you're still quite impressionable, see someone playing jazz in a big band setting and being like, oh, that is actually pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas like I didn't get exposed because my old man is into, your Black Sabbath and your Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and those kind of guys. Like I never really got exposed to jazz music until I was playing a bit of it in high school.
Mhm.
But even then, playing in the jazz band, like you'd get these songs by Duke Ellington, and you're like, who's this guy? I don't know who this is.
Yeah.
And not really ever being like instructed by a, a teacher, like, well, go and get this record,
Mm.
and that song that we're playing, you'll find it on this record, and you can listen to it. The drummer's this guy, another awesome. Like I think having like yourself, someone who's like your grandfather who knows about music, like having that someone like that in your life, like it really helps direct. Like most musicians I know had either a parent or a grandparent that was like, oh, like if you want to find out about this style of music, like go and listen to these bands. Like if you like this type of music, no, I don't listen to that kind of music. It's trash. Like,
Yeah.
like my old man knew nothing about punk music. Like he went as far as having a Clash cassette,
Yeah.
but I got into the Dropkick Murphys and Rancid and stuff, and no, not for me. Keep that to yourself,
Too far. Too far.
Yeah, oh, and even then, listening to some of those heavier bands, it is funny, looking at the kind of music that parents listening to, and then what you listen to, and then myself, like my kids are really into Irish folk music.
Yeah.
And I know I showed you the Dropkick Murphys, and
Yeah.
that's great. But how did you get from that to like sea
Yeah.
shanties, like full on sea shanties?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully they'll grow out of it, but it is what it is for the time being.
Hell, you never know.
And did you find that like over time your taste in music grew and changed dramatically from the Metallica, yeah, youth, or till you get a bit like older, or is like having a wide variety of music been something you've always been interested in?
I don't know. I feel like I've still got a pretty like narrow sort of taste in music. I don't listen to anything too obscure. I don't know. I just listen to what I like. I couldn't deep dive down into any genre. Um, I went through like a big funk stage there for a while. Obviously, I never got into the rockabilly thing too much. I played in rockabilly bands and did that and
Yeah,
wrote and recorded rockabilly and stuff like that. But like that was fun, but it wasn't something where it was like, oh no, I need to, deep dive in on this. But
yeah, yeah,
prog, progressive rock's always, or just prog music in general's always got a place in my heart. Weird time signatures and
yeah,
40-minute long songs. So I love that stuff. Um, but yeah, like I don't know, just as of late, I've really been enjoying like I've been listening to a lot of Steely Dan and like yacht rock and stuff
yeah,
like that.
right.
I don't know. I don't. If I listen to something, I listen to it to death, and then I move on once I
Yeah,
get bored of it. So,
yeah. I think a lot of kind of musicians that I know are similar in that kind of like they don't dwell on things for too long, and they
mm,
don't revisit a lot of older stuff
mm.
too often. Um, and so, do you find yourself finding a lot of newer bands, or do you find the new stuff that you're finding is actually old stuff that you've like neglected
New
from
stuff
the
I'm finding
past?
is old from
Yeah,
the past. Yeah. So there aren't too many newer bands that I'm into at the moment. Only just because I haven't found anything that really um, grabs me yet.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. There's something about the old, like I said, I've been listening to a lot of Steely Dan and like just the way A, the music, but B, that was the way it was recorded and just the way that the records were mastered and everything. It's like a complete package. It's good music, good production in it, but it's just kind of it's like a warm cuddle when you
yeah,
listen. To
yeah.
just
It is
it's not,
interesting.
yeah.
I do find like a lot of the music from that kind of era and in that kind of genre, like I put your Steely Dan's in with, say, your Neil Youngs, some of your Cosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Mhm.
Who else would you put in there? Guy that did Great Spirit in the Sky. What's his name? Greenball. So, anyway, that kind of music, like it's got uh it's almost like a time machine. Like
Mm,
it has the sound and it has the feel. It has, like you said, those production values that really transport you back to like a time and a place where, like, yeah, it just has, like, it really captured the time that it was written and the place that it was written in.
I think there's something to be said about the quality of the music as well.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that all bands these days are rubbish, but back then there were no independent labels or anything like that. So if you wanted, or if you had a record deal, it was funded by a record company, and you had to sell X amount of albums and do Y amount of tours. So the product had to be polished and good, and it was kind of releasing an album was hard work and millions
yeah,
of dollars.
yeah.
So last detail is just paid attention to, perfectly.
And that was I was having a discussion with someone else about music produced back then, and like trying to get the quality of sound that those guys managed to get with the equipment that they had to do it on.
Yep.
Here's this crusty old microphone that we're going to stand in front of this crusty old amp,
Yep.
and if we make it louder than 2.5, it's going to feed back to the point where it explodes and we can't use the mixing desk for 12 hours. So just keep it at 2 and we should be right.
Bells on the snare drum, yeah.
Yeah. And yet, they're still, kicking out like music that stands up to a lot of stuff getting produced today. Not just in like quality, but in like production wise.
As far as not as far as so much the songwriting, but the production and the mastering and the
and I think even the songwriting, like some of the songwriting that's being done today is, if not directly ripping off what those guys have done, stealing influence from it to the point where it's like, why don't I just go back and listen to the guys that did it?
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right, with songwriting and chords and that kind of thing, that, if you still want it to be palatable, I think you're stuck to a certain amount of choices that you can only use. But at the same time, like, the quality of the songwriting getting around now is really good. I think we went through a while there where sort of pop music went just really kind of just shit. There's just nothing like, because like I said, I'll give everything a chance, and some pop music I really dig, but there was just a few years there where it was just nothing, not that nothing good was coming out, but nothing really grabbed me. And then, like, for argument's sake now, Dua Lipa, when I first heard her, I was like, it was top 40, but it's like, this is actually like funking really well, and there's some really clever stuff going on in here. So with that, and with your Bruno Marses and all that sort of coming back, it's kind of that band feel is really coming back again, and that sort of clever songwriting, and we've kind of come full circle in a way.
I think we kind of, we had the glory days of the 90s and the early 2000s where, we had grunge and skater punk and metal were kind of getting their festivals, and they had all the festivals all over the place, and at that point the pop music that was coming out was like, boy bands, and solo female singers, occasionally a solo male singer, but it was all, R&B, terrible, like not well written at all, just, lollipop factory nonsense. And I think towards the end of the 2000 teens, early 2000, like 2000, maybe 16, 17, you started to see more of those funk influences and that like proper urban music creeping back into influence creeping back into pop music again. And so there are actually more palatable songs being written, because it seemed like for a while there, to be a pop musician, it was like, oh no, we don't want any of that like funk nonsense stuff. Like, we don't want any of those other influence, like maybe loud guitars, or no. Keep that out of here. We just want synthesizers and drum machines. All right. Occasionally, we might use a nylon string guitar, but that's as far as we're getting.
Yeah.
And so it is, nice to see those more and more like real instruments as it seems creeping their way back into, pop music or whatever's
the
getting played.
band is making a comeback.
Yeah. Not that proper bands ever went anywhere, but now
they kind of just got put to the side.
Kind of, hey, so we're no longer going to have a thing called a rock band. You're now going to choose a genre, and you're only going to perform at the festivals that are specifically designed for that genre of music. Can't we just have rock festivals?
I think people are clicking on too. They're realizing, like I know that Bruno Mars said he'll never perform without his band. He won't do a backing track show or anything like that. And you've got all these other guys. Justin Timberlake, he's got a hell of a band with him. You got Justin Bieber's got a hell of a band. Charlie Puth, all these guys. And so this new younger crowd are coming through and seeing these people, and they're actually, a lot of them will probably be hearing a live band for the first time.
Yeah.
And so when going now then from that massive live band, like if you were to see Justin Timberlake live with his band, then you were to go back, and if someone else was to perform, or even Justin Timberlake, just to a backing track, it'd be night and day, and everyone would go, nah, this is boring. I want the band, I want the,
which is good. Like, there's like, not everybody can be the drummer for Metallica.
Yeah.
But at least 5 different guys in 5 different cities could play the drums for Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
Like, because he could afford to pay 5 different guys for 5 different nights to learn all his songs. So like, I think that's a really good thing for musicians, that like you could earn a decent living now. Well, not a decent living, but
you could be hired.
Yeah, you could actually get hired again, and you don't have to be in 7 different bands trying to play to your 4 different local pubs, 5 nights a week just to get enough money to barely pay rent.
That's right.
So are you working full time as a musician at the
moment? Not as a musician. I'm just doing it sort of part time. It's kind of in the off season at the moment in Melbourne. There's still gigs happening. I'm still doing gigs here and there, but it sort of goes a bit quiet in winter. Not a lot of people want to leave the house and all that sort of thing, but coming back into spring and summer now, it'll be picking up, which is good.
And are you just getting work through like playing with bands, doing cover gigs and stuff like that as well?
Mainly doing corporate stuff and weddings, the odd Area-7 gig here and there. I'm also in like an 80s cover band, performing with a couple of different original acts. Got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies. The good thing is there aren't too many drummers. Like, there's millions of guitar players, millions of bass players, but it doesn't even take much to be a busy drummer. All you got to do is learn the music and play it pretty well and be a decent hang, and you've kind of got the job.
It is interesting because like being in Brisbane, when I first got here, I was like, I want to join a band, so I'll see what's going around. There is no end of people looking for drummers. But it's, like it's the opposite end of Brisbane for rehearsals. It's like, I don't want to be in a band that badly, like I'll find something closer to home. But drummers are always a rare breed and so sought after.
And we get bored doing one thing the whole time. We like to
I mean, even just myself, man, like, I was at one stage, I was playing in a band, doing like punk pub rock type stuff, writing a solo doom stoner metal stuff, writing solo pub punk rock music, and then like doing the podcast and having a full-time job. Like drummers we're the worst at like, I'll just be in one band.
Yep.
or these other guys wanted me to play with them as
Yeah, this
well.
could be fun. Yeah, yeah.
It could be fun. Like, and I think it is for a drummer, um, being in bands, if you're not someone who like plays other instruments and does writing for yourself,
Mm.
if drums are the only thing you're doing, being in one band can be really tricky, waiting around for the guys in the band to be like, we've written this new song, or like we've come up with
Mhm.
this new thing that we want to try. It's like, yeah, sweet, like show us what you got. It's like, here's this 30-second riff that we wrote. Like,
Yep.
we've been waiting 3 weeks for you guys to write 30 seconds of music. Like, far out, come on. Like,
Yeah.
you want me to play you the 20 new fills I've written in the 3 weeks, you guys? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
I
I
think,
think I take anything I can get my hands on. I mean, there was a while there with the Koffin Rockers, quite a few years ago. That was the only thing I was doing musically for years at that point, and I just got to this point where I just even said, like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore, just because I'd felt like I'd just sort of pigeonholed myself and kind of didn't allow myself to do anything different. But I started branching out, and I've done all these other different genres of music since, and different artists and gigs and stuff. So when I come back to the Coffin Rockers, it's kind of like, oh, I can relax. This is what I remember. You know,
yeah, it is nice to, like, it
you
is,
appreciate it more. Yeah,
like, and it's just like, I don't have to think too much about this.
yeah,
Like,
I can have fun.
this is familiar. I'm with people who I like, that I jam with, that I gel with.
Yep.
It's always nice. Um, so that being said, is Coffin Rockers doing more writing anytime soon?
Yeah, so the Coffin Rockers have written an EP that we recorded sort of over the last 8 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be coming out in the next hopefully month or so.
Yeah,
So
right.
it'll be 5 new songs for you. Um, I had it pretty easy with this one. The other sort of EPs that we'd written in the past, or in albums and stuff, it was kind of months and months of in the rehearsal room writing, brainstorming, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sort of a couple of nights a week doing it. But this time around, because they've had 40 filling in on drums. Michael's been writing with Sean, and 40 the drummer, and they just sort of sit in a room, and Hegs will come up with a riff. They'll kind of jam the song, and they do all the lyrics and all that sort of thing, and then they'll send it to me and go, hey, what would you put on this, or what would you do drumming wise? We've sort of found the formula of the song, but what would you add here? Or feel wise, we're kind of chasing a bluesy feel here, or so I would get on my little kit behind me, and
Yeah.
and just something on GarageBand, and send it down to them, and then yeah, and then I was up there for a gig, so I sent it up to them. I was up there for a gig last year in December, and I think in one afternoon or in about 2 hours, I tracked the 5 songs on drums, just because I was up there at the time and I
Yeah.
had my gear with me. So I got off pretty easy on this one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's always
yeah,
nice to just be able to walk in, bang it out.
yep. All
Because
right,
we
see
did,
you, boys. Yeah, see you in
yeah,
6 months.
like, that was one of the things, with writing. Like, I've never had a situation where someone's just gone, right, I've written this song. Can you just come and bang the drums out? Like,
Mm,
studio work would be fun, I think.
mm,
It'd be a nice, like, yeah, sweet. I get to try new songs every day. Just have to nail them, 2 or 3 takes.
yep.
Sick. I don't have to spend like months on
Mhm.
end writing.
Thinking about
And
what feels going
yeah,
on.
because I think that's like, in my recording experience anyway, it's been like, all right, we've got 3 songs. Can we go and record them now? It's like, oh no, they're not polished enough yet.
Yeah,
It's like, dude, we're gonna get into the studio and we're gonna change the way we play them anyway. Let's just go and record them, and then we can like, they'll get polished while we're recording. There's no point in playing them for another 3 months and
yeah,
doing it the exact same way to get to the studio and have someone go, that part there, you should put that there instead. You know,
Well, that was
like,
kind of the thought behind the latest EP that we've recorded is kind of, it sounds live because it kind of is like it's here's a riff, here's a chorus, here's a verse, put some drums on that, and it was
yeah,
sort of done kind of quickly without like there's obviously the thought that's gone into it and stuff like that, but not too much. Like in the past we'd written stuff and we just overthought the hell out of it, and it's the end result we were never happy with because we're always trying to tweak something, and then it would just overcomplicate everything. So
yeah,
it's really, this is just like just good old rock and roll in almost like its most primitive form. Just a riff, a bass line, some drums and vocals. There's nothing too crazy going on behind the scenes. It's just Hegs wrote a riff. The guys put some words to it. I think they did like 5 songs in an afternoon or something.
yeah, right.
And yeah, I think I wrote the drums in an afternoon as well, sort of based off of the feels that they had. So yeah, it's been a 4-person effort instead of 3 this time because they've had their other drummer that they can kind of uh, write with, and I think that's probably why it happened sort of so quickly, is because if I would have been there, I would have been sitting there going, why don't you flip this around and try this? And oh, no, I don't really like that.
Yeah,
So probably best I wasn't there. That's probably why things actually got done.
yeah. It is a tricky thing for a drummer as well, though. Like, because you're not playing the song. Like, I've been in songwriting sessions with guys, and they're playing on it. What if you put that riff there in front and then went back to that? And like, no, that doesn't. No, that's going to be. No, we're not doing that. Like, you're like, oh, all right, I'll just sit back in my corner. Like,
Yeah.
so I think So, other than playing drums, what do you do with yourself in your free time these days?
I ride a lot of motorcycles. Also,
Oh,
I ride one motorcycle a lot of the time. But that's pretty much it. Otherwise, I go out and living in Melbourne, I go out and eat nice food.
yeah, yeah.
Couldn't tell.
So you've been riding motorcycles for a while? Is it something you've always done, or
I'd owned
getting
like
into it?
dirt bikes in the past, sort of late teens and stuff like that, sort of early 20s, and then I'd never had my license. And then during lockdown, one of our lockdowns down here, I just thought, stuff it all. Had the cash and thought I'll give it a go, and fell in love with it. Always wanted a proper motorbike that I can ride on the road because I was never allowed a motorcycle as a kid, and just absolutely fallen in love with it. Made some great
Yeah,
mates from it. It was really good in lockdown just to get out and just clear your head a little bit. It's such a cliche, when you're riding a bike, it's just you and the road, and but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
true. Like you've got your helmet on, you can't sort of dwell on anything while you're riding because you're kind of in the moment, which
yeah.
is really nice. I'm exploring a lot of Victoria, and no, it's good.
Yeah, that's rad, man. Is there
Mm.
lots of nice trails? Like the roads down there are pretty
The
forgiving when
roads
it
are good.
comes
So
to
I've
motorcycling.
got a road bike. It's
Yeah,
sort of a vintage style Royal Enfield, but um, all the sort of there's so many little highways and country roads around here, and they all weave through like this beautiful, like these beautiful valleys and forests and alpine regions and stuff like that. It's like I've only got to go 40 minutes from my house, and I can see snow if I want to, or
oh wow.
like it's just it's such a diverse sort of landscape of stuff in Victoria.
Yeah, yeah. Because well, like me and my wife did Melbourne for our honeymoon, and one of the
Right.
days we went up for a drive up into the Dandenong Ranges to go to the tulip farm that's up there.
Yep.
And like it's just a completely it's really like chalk and cheese when it comes to like you've been in Melbourne and you drive like half an hour, 40 minutes
Yeah.
away, and it's like I'm in the
Feel like you're in the middle of it.
wilderness. Yeah, like
Yep.
it's so wild. I can only imagine doing it on a motorbike. It'd be even
Yeah, it's
more
pretty
fun.
pretty cool. You kind of get distracted, but you got to watch the road.
Yeah. Oh, dude, like that's pretty much the reason I don't own a motorcycle. I get distracted enough as it is driving a car. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way it would
Yeah.
be a safe idea for me to like. I'd love to, And I always see guys on bikes. I'm like, "Oh, you make me so jealous that you can do that." Like,
it's fun, man.
I'd have a hard time getting out my driveway and not being like, what the heck is, oh no. Like,
Yeah, I just ran a red light,
so yeah. Cool, man. Well, I think we'll wind it up there. It's been a good chat. We'll have to do this again. So, you guys looking at doing any touring or gigging down further down
Actually,
south?
we're coming down your way for Grease Fest this year. We've got Grease Fest again, so we're on the Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Early afternoon, sometime, maybe 2 o'clock or something like that at Grease Fest.
Yeah, right.
The boys are doing some gigs around the place up north. They're playing the pub gigs here and there in Townsville. They've got Pandapalooza this weekend up in Cairns, with a few other cool bands up there. So, yeah, they're busy.
Yeah, that's rad, man. It's good to see that, because I know a couple of guys that were in bands, and the COVID just killed them, man. Like it killed so much like enthusiasm for a lot of people.
Well, that's what happened. That's what happened to the Van Keys. That's why we sort of changed back, is because the Van Keys, we put a lot of thought into it. We were writing different music, sort of more kind of, I suppose, complicated music in a sense. We had a few good sort of tours under our belt that we'd done, and festivals and stuff like that. And we were in the process of writing again and doing some really, really great shows and national supports. And then COVID happened, and, you know, that's 2 years you won't get back, or just 2 years sitting idle. And then we tried to get back into it and write again and tried to rebrand it, but I don't know, we felt like we were flogging a dead horse a little bit. So it just, the transition back to the Koffin Rockers just felt easy because it was kind of fresh, and people remembered us, and, you know.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So have to look out for Greaser Fest. I'm pretty keen for that. I don't know if I've been to one before, but I've definitely met guys when I was working back at Bunnings back in the day who had been, and like had mentioned you guys. I was like, oh yeah, good old band from Townsville, good old Koffin Rockers.
Oh, cool.
Like, so
it's a good weekend.
Yeah, it looks like a fun weekend, man.
Heaps of old cars and everyone's dressed up, and it's really good.
Yeah, that's cool. I've got a couple of mates who are like right into their cars and stuff like that as well. So might drag them along. If not, just to be like, hey, you don't have to go and watch the band. You can just go and look at the cars if you want. But there
are some pretty cool bands and some pretty talented musicians too. So
sweet. Oh man, well, let's talk again, because my thing with this podcast is every guest we talk again in 6 to 12 months after the initial meeting, and we see how, like, you know, what they're doing music wise, you know, what their bands are doing, if they've released anything, how that went, stuff like that. So I'll be keen. We'll have a chat about how Greaser Fest went, any future Area-7 gigs that you play on. We'll have a good chat about those.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be great. All right, man. Well, thank you very much again for your time, and we'll speak again shortly.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rob.
Take care.
See ya.
I called up my friends and we had a chat, talking about life and just chewing the fat. They'll find it here on Biggie Nixz, small time big shots.